Coming up on That's a Great Point. And I didn't get it in the moment. And then whenever I was driving back home and I realized that underneath all that rage was a deep longing and sadness, it fucking broke me in the moment. And there was that huge, huge freaking shattering that happened. Like, God damn, I miss this person so much. It fucking hurts. And it's my rage that's kept me from being a part of her life. And that loneliness is eating me up. Have you ever felt alone in a crowded room? Or maybe you feel like nobody gets you or understands you? Or maybe even you feel like you're completely unlovable. On today's episode, we do a deep dive into how our need to protect ourselves and others from ourselves can create a barrier that has us feel alone, even when we're with our people. You'll notice some minor video malfunctions in today's episode, but the audio is fully intact. If you'd like to see us continue to expand our ability to deliver helpful content, hit those buttons. Thanks for playing along. Enjoy. Welcome to That's a Great Point, the attitude adjustment for your soul, where co-hosts Alina Doran, Michelle Albers, and Lee Smart discuss deep topics around a life well lived. Let's start the show. Truly just a magnificently wonderful human being. Everybody there is phenomenal.
Oh my God.
So that's, when it comes to doing this kind of work that we do, it's becoming apparent that one of the most important pieces of what we do is getting the right people in the room. Those people that are on the verge of, massive self-discovery, that just really good, big-hearted people that aren't stuck in, just limited thinking. The us versus them mentality is not there, and it's freaking phenomenal.
Cool. Especially in this political environment.
Yeah, it really didn't come up too much. I did make a joke that went just completely flat. You know how I do that? Sometimes I'll make a joke and the whole room just goes. So we're going over, one of the big things that we did was we go over, they have a completely different kind of personality typing system in this group. So one of the personality types is humor, and humor is just like the ability to change the energy in the room. Doesn't necessarily mean funny, doesn't necessarily mean good at cracking jokes. It just means very good at changing the energy, noticing the energy in the room, and being able to shift it. Many times with levity, but not always, right?
Yeah.
Many times humor types will feel responsible for everybody's feelings in the room.
Yes.
And they asked the question, said, who do you know that might be famous and is a humor type? I said, well, Donald Trump is a joke.
And people,
And that was just like, ooh, I can't believe he said that. So
did some people laugh?
I think they laughed on the inside.
Yeah. 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 That's you went to a place where I imagine, that was a thought bubble and you converted it into a speech bubble.
Yeah. So my personality type, I got typed as a danger type. And
What's a danger? I'm curious about the personality types.
Oh, so the agreement is not to talk about it too incredibly deeply.
Okay.
Obviously, I want to share part of my experience, but I can't share anybody else's under confidentiality. My experience was being typed as a danger type. Was like, oh, that explains a lot. A danger type is somebody that when they walk into the room, they bring with them an air of anticipation, like something's about to happen. Typically, that scares people because it's like, oh, I'm going to get knocked out of my comfort zone. Whoa. And that has been the truth for how I show up in the world many times. I've seen it. Like people have called me intimidating more than once.
No, it's
And so it's yeah, it's the ability to make people go, oh shit, something's about to happen.
that. I mean, as anything in life, that could be an incredible asset or get in your way, right?
Very much so.
Yeah.
That's actually where today's topic tied in of loneliness.
Mm, mm,
And that, I've wondered for years, why is it that what do I put out that scares people? And then I was really, really stewing on it on my drive back home. So I made it home about 3 a.m. yesterday morning. I guess it was actually closer to about 3:30, and it finally clicked. It was like, big, scary fucking me. What am I most afraid of? Me. I'm absolutely most afraid of me.
mm.
And that my ability to cause massive amounts of damage in relationships just due to the rage that I have inside me from things that have happened way early on in my life, that instead of actually dealing with that rage, all I've done is cover it up and bury it. And my fear of that rage has kept a major wall, major barrier up for deep, meaningful relationships. Only the select few people have been comfortable enough to come inside close enough. And it's because it's my own fucking fault. That hit me
Always
hard.
our own fucking fault.
Yeah. See, that's like I'm with you.
Always. It's always our own fucking fault. You're not special.
Yeah.
Oh, ooh. I'm
Yep.
curious what you saw on that drive of yourself.
There's been a divide between me and somebody I love deeply. And I've wondered what it's been, and my resistance to trying to go and rekindle that relationship and see what's going on stems from I'm afraid to show my rage in that situation because it hurts me so bad that this person has distanced themselves from me. It hurts so bad I want to fucking lash out and let them have it. And that scares me because I don't want to drive them further away. So there's that sense of loneliness right there. Like, oh, it's fucking it's big. It's so big. And the fact that I was able to realize that, it was like, wait a second. No, I can absolutely have that rage be here and not let it destroy, not let it burn the fucking world down. I see y'all thinking out there.
Yeah. Where's that rage now?
Where is it now?
Mm-hmm.
It's bubbling under the surface, but in it's actually been replaced by this deep sense of sadness and longing. Once I brought it to the front and realized that was what's in the way, it brought this acceptance of it that brought a deep sense of sadness and longing for the missing relationship.
Because on the deepest level, it's actually not about rage.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. The rage is a symptom of this person's hurt me by just
Mm-hmm.
not answering my calls, not answering my text messages. So there's that powerlessness that comes about that, and when I feel powerless, I get fucking angry.
Mhm.
Hello, sweet abandonment wound.
You nailed it right there, Michelle. That I've been neglected. My whole childhood, I was neglected. My mom was a alcoholic that was completely non-functional, and she was so deep in her own wounds that she didn't have room for anybody else.
That's what's underneath the rage so often. It's the boo-boo. It's
It's
just
always the wound.
right. It's a boo-boo, and it's the squishy human underneath the hard shell of like, I'm so angry, I'm so tough. And when you crack that shell underneath, it's this like gooey, ow, you hurt me. I'm scared.
The anger is the avoidance, and the sadness is the processing and the actually feeling of the wound. And then the sadness will take you to the wound. And then when you're in the wound, then it's like, well, here's where the work begins. Like the real, like the healing part. It's fascinating. I never used to cry. And I was teaching Reiki 3. And one of my girls was like, "You haven't cried yet." I was like, "What?" She's like, "You cry in every class, Michelle." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I tend to get real. And like, I'm usually if I'm teaching something big and deep, one of my wounds comes forward and I'm in it and I just live it in real time with them." I go, "Yeah, but the Reiki 3 is different. Like, I'm like a lightning bolt in Reiki 3 because of attunements and all this other stuff." And I go, "I never used to cry. I just was always pissed. I was always angry. Now I got all these tears. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Why are my eyes leaking?" It's such a
Fucking
weird
eyes
thing.
leaking.
Somebody broke the valve, huh?
Yeah. But it feels good, you know? It's like, oh.
Mhm.
And then it doesn't feel good. And then it feels good again.
What do I call it? It's a softening, and then you step into like an acid bath of like
Well, the fascinating piece of
facing
that,
it,
yeah.
of actually facing it, and that's I call it the acid bath of like sitting with what's like searing and burning, and it hurts, and you can't get to the other side of it without processing and allowing yourself to feel what is, and that hurts often.
And the coolest part about the softening is that where you actually find your power. Like the rage isn't the power. The power is within the softening. There's like a surrender and acceptance there, and like a compassion that you can't really describe until you're in it. And then it's like, holy fuck, this feels amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's even when you first started talking a while ago, Michelle, that I fucking got a chill went through my body. I start to talk about removing that rage, letting it, and then what's underneath the rage, and being that deep sense of sadness, and like that's been coming up again and again and again over the last few months as I've been doing the work, is the grief. Grief for not having the childhood that could have been, the grief for everything that has been lost and everything that never got to be, the grief for all the relationships lost, and all the death and so much loss. And one of the things that popped up throughout the retreat, so a part of the retreat is we have a ropes course day, and there's a trust fall. Everybody else is having this significant experience from the trust fall, and I'm like, oh, big whoopity doo. And I was envious. I was envious of the change and the how much meaning they were taking from the trust fall. And it ended up in the debrief later on. I brought up exactly what I was thinking. It's like, I'm too tough for this shit. It's not my exact words, but it was like, I have been forged in the pain for so long that I've become way over tempered. Like if you know how tools work, like an axe, say, for example, whenever you have an axe and you are forging it, eventually once you're done, you temper it, and tempering it causes it to harden. But if you over temper it, it hardens so much it becomes brittle. And I was talking about, no, I need to be retempered. And one of the leaders said, no, you need to be fucking shattered. And I didn't get it in the moment. And then whenever I was driving back home and I realized that underneath all that rage was a deep longing and sadness, it fucking broke me in the moment. And there was that huge, huge freaking shattering that happened. Like, God damn, I miss this person so much. It fucking hurts. And it's my rage that's kept me from being a part of her life. And that loneliness is eating me up.
It's not the rage, my friend. It's the pain of the wound, the fear of neglect and abandonment, and more of the same.
And such is a huge piece of loneliness, that fear of just not being seen, of not being understood, of being neglected, being abandoned. Like if I actually show them who I am, they're going to run away.
Thank you for sharing this. I'm reflecting on a client who has a very similar story. I mean, it's different, but it's the same. She's in that place right now that you are, that she's mad about the childhood she didn't get, and it's fucking with her in the now. Oh, to get you two in the room together would be so amazing for both of you, I feel like. But that's it. It's like to have a whole childhood that you wish it looked completely different and you can't change it. And then to process all of that and then all the layers of the ways that you were treated. Like that's such big, deep stuff. And you know what's funny? You keep using the word rage, and most people don't use the word rage, but she does, to the point where we're like, we're going to make you a rage kits for the people in your house. And then they're just protected. So you don't have to worry about your rage anymore. It's okay. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm reflecting on how we don't have spaces in our society for being with rage. You know, when someone is experiencing rage, they are told to leave the room and wait outside.
yeah.
Oh, you've been a bad boy, you've been a bad girl, step outside, get yourself together and come back.
Mm-hmm.
You will not engage with other people. And so what do we do in our society with rage is we isolate and we amplify the loneliness of the person who is feeling that rage, right? Thereby, it's like we're putting them in solitary confinement. They're already in their own prison. And now we're amping up the pain. You go to solitary confinement and you sit with it alone. You're going to get to be less understood and less seen than you already were.
Mm-hmm.
That's our society. We do not have enough spaces where people can go and be with it as is.
Well, and to be with it without any form of judgment. Like you
Right.
can say, do
That's
whatever you want. Like there's
it.
nothing wrong in this room, you know, which means you can scream, shout, you know, punch a bolster, say all the most horrible things that want to come out, and no one in the room is going to meet you with anything other than love.
100%. I mean, that's being with is letting go of the judgment.
Yeah. That's what came up for me as I was going through that. And I felt like there were pockets of people that had similar issues and they were talking about it. And I really did feel like nobody got me, that I was all alone. And that right there was like, damn, that hurts.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I'm like, wait a second, how are they going to get me? I don't even get myself.
Hmm.
In a way, it was like, oh, ow. But that after putting the words to it and the thoughts to it and actually sitting with it and being with it is like, oh yeah, that's my fault. Um, like I'm expecting everybody out. Like porcupine is the greatest example. Talking about your porcupine, Alina, and your asshole context is putting the quills up and making sure people can't even get in close.
Yeah. I'm fine.
Yeah, or having nice witty barbs to throw at people, or the wall of jokes and the wall of I'm not taking this seriously, and this is all one big joke. Like that all just set up this barrier, so which is one of the key pieces to loneliness. Is it's almost, or I say almost, it's always about us. Feeling lonely is first place to look is inside, not outside. It's not other people's fault.
Could feel like a trap. Right? Like a deep well.
Mm-hmm.
And only if the person knew that there's a whole world outside that well, they only could lift up a little bit and see above the edge, they would know that there are other people struggling like them, whether they're in their abandonment wound or it's lonely at the top because they've reached a level of success and they realize that's not their definition of success or doesn't taste so good. Kind of tastes like shit sometimes. No one's there with you when you're alone in the room. No one understands you.
Yeah. Well, that and it's the fear of neglect and abandonment can cause us to put a wall up. Like you have to earn the right to be behind this wall. So we have the barbs up. I mean, just as an act of pushing away. Only the people that really care will stay here.
It's
Well,
an elegant narrative that one can live with their whole lives. Right? That doesn't, like, those needles don't expire. You could just keep walking around and it sounds strong and it sounds logical. So it's an easy trap to fall into.
well, when you've had those walls your whole life, that well feels safe.
Mhm.
And to even consider about shifting even one brick of the well feels so fucking vulnerable. Like you don't have skin, you're out in the world unprotected, you're standing naked, skinless, all the elements are coming at you. And you don't remember how to protect yourself because one fucking brick is missing because you've never not had it.
Yep.
And so to stand there in that discomfort and explore what that might be like is absolutely terrifying.
Indeed.
And yet we are so not alone, and it is so commonplace and so not creative that even like the Surgeon General has talked about the loneliness epidemic. The idea that loneliness can do for our health what smoking 15 cigarettes a day can do. It kills us. It absolutely withers and kills us. And it's everywhere. And it's become worse and worse. It's really become intensified, right? With the global forces, with technology, with COVID-19, lockdowns, isolation, people kind of being furrowing further into their holes with the wounds and the traumas and the boo-boos that they already had. And now they're even further deeper in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have social media telling you that everyone else is feeling great. So it's got to be you. You're alone.
Yeah.
My grandma died, and it wasn't long after my step grandfather died. And I don't know how true this is, but like my family said, like what he die of? Literally on his death certificate, supposedly it says he died of loneliness. Like there was no other reason for him to die. It was
Huh.
just he died of loneliness. And I was like, I don't know if that's true. Because then they said something about like his heart being black. I'm like, dude, they smoked
Mhm.
in that house. Like his heart would have been black either way. Do you know what I mean? But I don't
Mm.
know. That was the story. I should try and find his death certificate and see if it actually says that. But like there were no other, he didn't have any health
Mhm.
stuff. It was just grandma died. 3 months later, grandpa died.
That's a great example, right?
Yeah.
Like loneliness or heartbreak.
Hmm.
We know when, right, couples who love each other so much, and they don't survive much
Yeah.
longer without each other because it's heartbreak.
Well, if you look
It's
at the rates of depression and anxiety, how quickly they escalated whenever COVID-19 shutdown happened, and we all were isolated, and very, very quickly, suicide rates climbed, depression, anxiety shot through the roof.
Mhm.
That's been one of the, I don't know, I hesitate to say it, but it's been a benefit of COVID-19 in that it has helped people change their perspective on how important it is to have other people in our life.
At some point, there was a survey, a study done in the midst of the pandemic or lifting out of it, and Americans reported more than half of people in the United States reported feeling a languishing, closer to more than that, well over 50% feeling a languishing. So it's not clinical depression, but it's a deflation.
Hmm.
And being alone, loneliness, it tied to dementia, Alzheimer's. When people are alone in isolation, their mind starts to go as well, right?
Hmm.
So we see it every stage of life comes with the risk of loneliness, right? When you're graduating from school, there's a quarter life crisis, right? Before the quarter life crisis, it's like wait, there's a sadness and a mourning often that folks will have. This is even without the childhood that you're describing, Lee, right? This is all that aside. Let's say someone had a reasonable childhood where they felt reasonably supported and seen by their parents. Well, then they're graduating and they don't know what they're going to do for a living. And now they've committed to something and they don't feel like it's their calling and they don't feel connected to it. And they feel a disillusionment that this is all there is in life. Like I had these big dreams and this is all there is. And that there's a sadness, a wave of sadness. And what do young adults do with that? They go and they drink and they dance and they deflect and they keep looking away and they keep climbing a ladder so often that's prescribed to them. Well, you've got to go do this next, right? You've got to get that promotion. After that, you'll make another promotion. You got to, switch some companies up,
Uh-huh.
that sexy resume going, which is, listen, all great things. When you're using it as a deflection mechanism, not so great. And then all of a sudden they hit midlife crisis. It's like you went past the, post school, quarter life, midlife, and then there's a realization, this heavy, like ton of bricks. I still haven't found it. I'm not okay.
Yeah, that's the once I finally get there, then everything's going to be okay. I just have to have the house and the car and the spouse and the 2.5 kids and the dog and the picket fence and the job with the fancy title and we'll get the 2 vacations a year. Once we finally get there, that's when it's finally going to be great. And there's no amount of external that can ever fill a hole that's internal.
Mm.
A number of times I tell my clients, this isn't finite. This is infinite. This work, this healing, this going within, this finding your internal compass, so to speak, because we evolve. And so what brings us joy and happiness over time evolves with that. So it's not finite. and everything is temporary. So if you have this expectation that joy is going to be with you the moment you figure it all out and stop avoiding your shit and heal, that's such an unrealistic expectation, and it takes you back to that place of sadness and feeling empty. It's like, this isn't finite. And sometimes they get like this defeated look. Like, inevitably, the first response is this like look of defeat and despair. It's like, there's no magic pill. This is a journey and you get to be part of it. And then they're just like, oh, and there's like this sigh of relief, like, oh, you mean I don't have to like achieve a certain thing? This is more about like the dance of life versus like succeeding to the end point, whatever that looks like. So it's like this duality of, oh, what do you mean there's not an end here? And then there's this other side that's like a relief that like, oh, this is just an ongoing process. And I get to find the joy in each step as it works out and feel the pain in the steps that's required. And it's such a beautiful thing, but it's like, to have that conversation for the first time with someone who's like just taking that first deep dive into the healing is I find it beautiful to watch them explore their energy within it. But it feels somehow less lonely when you're in a room full of people that understand that there's no magic pill and that it's not finite and that we're in this together, and our stories might be vastly different, but our pain points just aren't. Like, we're not that unique. I mean, we are, but we're not. And so to be in a room of people who can like see that and feel it and get it and understand it, that takes away the loneliness. That makes you understand you're not ever alone. There's always someone else who's going to get it.
Yeah.
Always.
One of my mentors, Ken Mossman of the Integrated Adult Man program, told me one time, he said, healing happens in community. And it's absolutely wonderful. So many therapy settings are based one-on-one, and that's good, but it's a whole nother level whenever you go into a group program and are with a bunch of people that are also going through similar things, and that there can be a whole nother level of healing and growth and just, I don't know, just perspective shifts.
I think
And it's sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, whether it's like a group community, we come back to this the theme, the thread of community, like every time. Not every time, right, almost every time. It's people need people. Whether it's so individual therapy can be super effective, right? One-to-one coaching can feel therapeutic. It's not therapy, it could feel so incredibly therapeutic. In the end, those action items, what happens afterwards, right? The work happens between the sessions. So the work can happen in one-on-one, can happen certainly in a group, it can happen in one-on-one, but it's what happens between the sessions of integrating those learnings and the processing within yourself and definitely within your community with others, right? So you can have the one-on-one and then there are action items afterwards to connect, right? What's one simple step you can take to feel slightly more alive today, slightly less alone today, right? What's the easiest path of least resistance thing that you can do today to connect with somebody in your life? And then do it.
And I just find it so ironic that healing is in community, and yet no one can do it for us. Like, we have to go internal to heal. And when we go internal with a group, that is way more powerful than going internal alone. Like, you have to do the work and you have to choose your healing and find it for yourself. And you don't have to do it alone. And that is like freaking magical.
Indeed.
It's funny, you were talking about therapy, and I just had a flashback. The Art of Manifestation weekend that we did, there were two therapists in the room. And after one break, they're like, you guys are like the best group therapy people ever. And I'm like, no, we're not doing group therapy. They're like, you're doing therapy. I'm like, no, we're not. We are not therapists. I'm like, we are a former preschool teacher and a plumber. And they're like, group therapy with a former preschool teacher and a plumber is the best therapy I've ever had. And I was like, stop calling it therapy. That is not my lane. But it was a really high compliment. Right. I was like, I have to be careful with the messaging here. Don't do that.
That's right. That's right. It's like Tony Robbins often will talk about like he's not a therapist, but I mean he'll be more bold and brazen about it. He'll say he talks about how he's gone to therapists and said, bring me the patients that have not made progress with you. Bring me the hardest ones. I will fix them in 5 minutes, in like 20 minutes. I will fix them right up. So a lot more brazen, but yeah, what can feel therapeutic does not have to be contained it's not isolated to therapy alone. The three of us know that. People have exited the spaces that we have created for others, telling us that this has felt more therapeutic than the therapy that they've gone to for years. It is not therapy, but it can be incredibly healing and revealing and process the gunk, process the shame, the guilt, the shame, the loneliness, all the darkness. So I keep a Post-it on you guys know this, I keep a Post-it on my desk, dusty corners of shame and guilt. It's a reminder, dusty corners of shame and guilt. Look at the corners. Don't just sweep the middle of the floor. Don't mind the corners. Because like Michelle was saying earlier, it's an iterative, it doesn't end. As long as we're alive, we have to keep looking and seeing.
Reminded of a quote I heard whenever I was in the retreat. It was, if you do, you're going to get done. If you be, then you'll become.
Ooh. Isn't it both? Don't you have to be in order to do the things that are meaningful? The doing and the being.
Yeah.
But if you're in the being, that encompasses the doing. You know what I mean?
I think of both. I think of them as like part one, part two, and they dance with each other.
I think for me, yes, 100%. They are different. The thing for me is like if you're doing mindlessly, that's not being, but you can be and do mindfully, and then that is your being.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they have to be, there has to be a thread connecting them. Otherwise it's
100%. I totally agree. You can't do without the being intentional and conscious.
Yeah.
Then some of us can get stuck in the being and like analyzing and feeling and in the moment and sitting with it. And then it's time to stand up and execute.
Mm-hmm.
From that place.
Yep. And if we execute without the being part of it, then the execution is many times hollow. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about if you have somebody who's at a position of customer service, if they're being somebody who is wounded, hurt, grumpy, grouchy, their being is on a lower level of they're not happy people, and you can feel that no matter what they do, that customer service is going to be lackluster. Versus if you have somebody who has done the work and is just expressing who they are meant to be, their best characteristics of themselves, and are happy and whole and living within that piece of themselves, that customer service will always be better than it's doing the same exact things.
The key differentiator is presence.
Mm-hmm.
Is a person there in the moment, in body and spirit, or are they going through the motions and have an agenda and they're somewhere else?
Yeah. But yeah, they noticed actors in particular, that the actors that were going for roles that were too far outside of how they naturally are were far less likely to get the role that they're trying for. So then they started to type each other in acting groups. The actors would get together and, oh, you're this type. Oh, you're that type. And if they would go for roles and bring their own natural type forward, then they were far more likely to get the role, because it's like of their essence. Their essence is of specific role, then they're going to be more on point. Like, could you imagine if Robert De Niro tried to have played anything Jim Carrey ever did?
Hmm.
It would have flopped completely, because Robert De Niro has a completely different essence than Jim Carrey. Like Jim Carrey, his essence is going to be highly eccentric. And if he were to do anything other than eccentric, then it wouldn't work for him. Like, even his serious roles are very eccentric. And that's how he's able to do well in some of his other roles, because it captures his own personal essence.
This is true.
It's funny, we're talking about essence, and I had a flashback at one point. I think it was when Alina was talking to my yoga teacher training, and I was maybe 4 years into my deep dive healing at that point, and I was super nervous we all had to do a student teaching thing. But one of the girls' classes, at the end of it, when they were laying down to just rest, she said, "There's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, and there's no one to be." And I think that was the first time in my life that I was like, wait, there's no one to be. Wow, I have a lot of masks and filters that I wear all the time. And I just sort of like surrendered. And I just remember feeling like, I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do anything, but I also don't have to be anything. I can just exist in this moment in time. And I still, that was in 2015. Like to this day, I remember, holy shit, it was like the most liberating moment. And those three phrases come in for me sometimes when I'm feeling really heavy. It's like, how many moments in your life do you have those things that just become anchors for you to remind yourself you don't have to be lonely, or you don't have to try so hard, or life can be calm in a moment? I don't know. It's just, these conversations are cool.
Every time. I think that's how this whole thing got started, right? It's how this podcast came to be. They're always such cool conversations. I was thinking about loneliness and the paradox of how deeply lonely one can feel while in company of others.
Hmm.
It's incredible and can feel really jarring, especially when in company of others.
Alone in a crowded room. That's
Right?
it's a special place to be.
Yeah. How often people feel I live in an urban environment. I'm often around people, and you see people who feel clearly so disconnected. You could feel their loneliness. Sometimes you feel their energy, their sadness, their hurt, and they're in a shell, right? There's a lot of armoring happening, and you see it quite a bit. And you're walking around people, and you sort of sense their essence, their aura. Like, ooh, that's a lot of pain. There's a lot of disconnect. And that can almost become even more, become scarier because it can become a habit, right? It becomes so routine that you leave the home, feel armored up with protection, do not let anyone in. And you walk around in your bubble and you're not actually there with people, even though you're physically with people.
Yeah. Such a key piece in that, if we aren't feeling safe in ourselves, we put those walls up, and then people can't get in. And when people can't get in, we're like, oh, why don't you just push through the fucking wall? Come on now.
Right. or they must
Waiting
not
for that
care.
rescuer.
Or they're affirming the story and the narrative that they have already running in their mind.
Yeah.
See,
It's
nobody cares. You see, they walked
yeah.
right past me. That friend never cared. You see,
Mm-hmm.
they're looking for proof of the story that's running. And if you're looking for proof, you'll probably find it.
Indeed. That's something's wrong with me.
There's that.
I'm too different. I'm unlovable.
I think sometimes, and I'm going to speak to personal experience, the most lonely, deeply lonely and painful times in my life, I was surrounded by people and I found myself less and less able to speak about what was happening in my life. That was so deeply painful and challenging that I found myself kind of falling into that well. And I would be around people. I would be around people who would have cared, who would have wanted to know. And if I had only opened up to them, if I had only shared with them, listen, I'm in so much pain right now. And I feel so alone. And I just, you're right. If I only shared what's happening and let them in, given them the chance to see me, to see what's happening for me, they would have tried. They would have made bids to my bids, right? Counter bids. But I didn't. I felt this like almost like I was losing my voice, like I was becoming mute about things that became really painful for me. And so I would appear on the outside, if you saw me, probably perfectly fine to most people. Polite, funny, good time, energetic. And on the inside, I was absolutely deeply sad and alone. The most alone I'd ever been.
That's another wall we can put up is the wall of, yeah, I'm fine. Let me show you how fine I am. I'm laughing.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
dancing. I'm
of
singing.
course.
Look how fine I am.
I'm a great time.
Yep.
That's that. Yeah, that's the protective mechanism.
Like, how many times have y'all heard somebody that has committed suicide and their loved ones go, I never saw that coming.
Sure. That's, oh, yeah. They're so joyful. They were so energetic. They were so fun. I am grateful that through the languishing and the mental health crisis and the loneliness that the last 5, 6 years has really expedited for humanity. What's also been expedited is a societal awareness of mental health and the importance of mental health. And the word loneliness is less, it's more common now and accepted to hear it and for it to even be a topic to discuss. There's less stigma attached. There's less shadow and shame attached to it. And unfortunately, very sadly, because some celebrities, well-known people have chosen to end their lives, the world has gotten to see how happy and joyful and fantastic they were. Like 12 hours before they were gone.
That's pretty common. Like they're at their happiest, most joyful, kind of saying their last goodbyes in the happiest way. I say that from experience, like people that I know.
You know, how many comedians out there are deeply, darkly depressed?
Sure.
It's serious.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the loneliest folks I know are some of the folks that I've worked with in the past, right? I've worked with clients who are on the outside have checked off boxes of what we consider in society, success, markers of success. They've gone to excellent schools. They've had incredible career progression, right? Their families, the photographs on their desks in their office. They've won awards, recognition. They're great. But when you really step in and sit with them, and when they sit with it, and even consider what it is to begin with, realize that there's so much loneliness.
I think, do you think a lot of people look external to fulfill the loneliness? Because I find like if you're not comfortable being in a room with yourself, you're never going to be comfortable in a room full of other people. And so much of this comes down to self love, I would say. Like, become your own best friend, love the I in friend. If that's not part of your day to day, it's pretty hard not to walk around feeling lonely because you have an internal battle over and over again saying, I don't like you, even if it's on a subconscious level. And so, like, I never used to like myself. Like, for me to be able to say, I like me, and if you don't, that's okay. I mean, I was the person who needed everybody in the room to at least care about me, like to like me. I wouldn't try for that. I wasn't that person, but I didn't love myself. I didn't even like myself. So it was like I needed to find that externally. And then the more I uncovered, like, it was because I was attaching myself to all these different boxes that I was showing up in to be lovable, but it wasn't me. And so I didn't even know who I was. So how could I possibly love me when I had never found me in the depth of that well behind all those fucking bricks? I didn't know who that was. I had too much anger and guilt and shame and walls and bricks and like I desperately want to be seen and loved, and I don't actually want anybody to see me because I don't really like me. So it's like the dance out of that fucking mess is a hard one. And to try and do that alone is tricky, but to try and do it in a room when you have walls feels impossible. So the goal and the key, like those keys that we talked about, I think with Sean, maybe finding the safe rooms where you can actually start to crumble some of those bricks that have just been exhausting you and keeping you so hidden that there's no possibility of being seen by you or anyone else. But how do you do that? You have to find and look at those damn wounds. What am I so fucking afraid of? What am I so pissed about? Why am I so upset? And not everybody goes to pissed. I did learn that. I thought that was everybody's go-to. It is not. There are some people that are very afraid of anger, and that is not where they go. They go to sadness or withdrawal, like a different thing, right? Over time, I've learned that. But I totally am the rager, right? Like I'm like I'm just going to be pissed at this until it goes away, which it never goes away when you guys. And now, like I said earlier, I just cry. I never cried. Now I cry all the time. And it's interesting to witness. But like, how do you become your own best friend when you don't know how to look?
Really difficult to do something like that on your own, right? Even if it is a community of two people.
Yeah.
With someone else bearing witness and asking questions and not judging and helping you look, just to help you see how powerful that is. I did not even consider the power of just being and just seeing and feeling safe to do so.
Yeah.
And that's like the acid bath that I talk about. It's a very like difficult image, right? It's like painful. That's where the armor melts. That's where it has to dissolve. And then you take a dip. Then you take a swim.
Yeah.
And no one's pulling you out of it. I think that's a key to healing is giving so whatever time, there's no wrong or right amount of time to process and to be with and to look at the core of what's been there, what's been blocking you, the wounds and the pain. So if you need to swim in that pool for a while, do it. I think it's actually harmful to pull the person out, to rescue them. That is acting on somebody else's agenda, right? So if I am with a friend, if I'm with Lee and Lee's sad and he's down and I'll say, Lee, come on, cheer up. Let's go. Hey, remember that movie you really wanted to see? How often people do that for each other. They think they're being a good friend. That's all they want to be in that moment, that, they have great intentions in their heart, love in their heart. And sometimes letting the person, just sitting with a friend who's sad or angry or raging, just sitting with them and bearing witness to what they're experiencing, allows the space and doesn't belittle it. It doesn't demean it. And you're not sweeping it under the rug.
You pulled out a key piece a while ago, Michelle, is how often we look to the external to try and solve our internal problems. And if you really think about it, ever since anybody alive today was a kid, we've been marketed to so much. With all the advertising, you see the people that are super happy because they purchased this product, and man, this is what you need if you want sex or love or excitement or exhilaration or peace, or you got to buy this thing. Trust me. You buy this, and everything's going to be okay. So we've been trained again and again and again and again to look outside of, like, once you get that job, once you get the title, once you get this much money, once you get all the fame and the fortune, that's finally going to be what it is that sets you free. And you're at that point, whenever that happens, you'll finally be loved and accepted. And so we're led to believe that for our whole lives. And it's many times not until we get all those things and go, man, there's still a hole here. There's something deep inside here that I'm still trying to fill, and it's just not getting filled. And I've done everything that they've said I needed to do. Why the hell do I still feel like something's missing?
We're so good at finding coping mechanisms, right? You just described retail therapy. Great coping mechanism, not healthy, but it's a coping mechanism. How often do we look at what comforts us? How many people know what actually comforts them? Or do we just have a whole series of coping mechanisms like retail therapy and anger and, other ways to avoid
Booze, drugs,
a million things,
pornography.
easy.
The going to the dating apps these days are significantly different than whenever I was dating, right? So it's so easy just to pull up an app and swipe a few times and find you a partner for the night. That it's just a quick little soothing that it's not actually deep connection. It's so shallow.
Yeah, that deep connection thing is such a key piece. And I find it, I get it, but I do find it fascinating that most people meet those deep places with fear first. Like, what are we so terrified of?
Well,
I get it. I do know what we're terrified of, but and what if you explore just step into it and see if you can, what do you discover on the other side of that fear? What do you discover when you learn what actually comforts you in a healthy, supportive way versus an avoidance, keeping you stuck in that swirl way?
For me, it didn't show up as fear. So that's why I never saw it, because many people were talking like, oh, you're afraid of doing it. I said, fuck you, I'm not afraid. Watch me. Right? It didn't show up as fear for me. It showed up as either anger or hold my beer, watch this. Mm-hmm. That's how it showed up for me. Was I'll prove this to you. I'm not afraid. I'll do shit that people refuse to do because I'm not afraid. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll go swimming with gators. Hey, we were doing the ropes course the other day in the retreat, and I could see people were unbelievably nervous to get up there and climb it. And I'm like, yeah, that's my comfort zone. My comfort zone is in the red line. I'm not afraid to go do the external because I was told I was afraid. So I'm going to show you that I'm not.
Mhm.
And what I was actually afraid of more than anything else on this planet is me and my ability to rage and destroy. And that wasn't allowed to be. And I didn't even know it. Didn't even fucking know it. I was too blind to actually sit with it and be with it to notice that it was my rage that was in between. That's what I was afraid of more than anything else. And it just, fear shows up in different ways that I never knew was possible.
Yeah, I think avoidance is a result of fear, but we don't label it either.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Some people do. Some people label it fear. Like the people who live in fear most of the time aren't afraid to label it fear. That's a weird way to say it. Uh, and then there's those of us who like don't feel the fear part, but are avoiding the things that'll take us to that place. Why would you avoid it if there wasn't some sort of fear? You know?
And our brains are wired to keep ourselves safe and keep ourselves static as is. Don't change anything.
Mhm.
That's our natural brain wiring and our disposition as humans. So why would we change? I had a conversation with someone about what their life would be like what if? And we're sort of dreaming and imagining, like, what if you looked at it? What if you explored? What's possible? What could be on the other side? And they said to me, I might have to change everything. Like, I might have to change my entire life. And they didn't want to. They weren't ready to. It was too much, too scary to look at it because it can't be unseen. And once you know, you can't unknow it. And then what if? What if I have to make choices? What if I'm not who I thought I was? What if that status stuff is, what if I need to review like all the major decisions I've made in my life? And that's terrifying.
Well, and sometimes I think maybe they're not meant to, you know?
Mm.
Like maybe it's a different purpose. Maybe there's a different thing to look at or way to heal that doesn't require a total upheaval. You know, I think it's layered and it can look a lot of different ways. It is interesting. There comes a point in healing, like whether it be on the Thai massage mat or the Reiki table or in coaching, for some people there is a line that is just they're not willing to or meant to cross. And I think that also has to be okay. You know, like we can't want it for them. Maybe they got rid of just enough pain to make their life as happy as, like, the happiest as it's meant to be in the now, in this lifetime. And that can be a beautiful thing too. It's interesting to watch the journeys, and sometimes they get to that point where it's like it's going to be do or die kind of a thing, where it's like if I go one more step in this direction, literally my entire life turns upside down, and I don't actually think I want that, and I get to choose that. But then what does it look like here to still be happy and healed without making everything upside down? And I think both can happen, both are possible. And everybody has a different sort of threshold of what actually feels like not only possible, but like right for them.
I love the nuance that you're pointing out, right? It isn't all or nothing. Like, you don't need to move to a new country to live consciously. Like, you may want to, but it's not necessary. You don't have to change your whole career and run away from your family. Like, you can be in this life. And the huge distinction is now you're doing it intentionally. How powerful it is to look at the thing and say to yourself consciously, that's my line. I do not want to take that step over there. I don't feel good about it. I don't want to. I choose to stay here on this side. That feels right, aligned. But the power of having looked and made that choice consciously, that alone is a huge unlock. It's incredibly powerful.
Well, and then the work becomes shifting your perspective, because obviously you were doing the work to get out of a pain point that was in the current like life that you're living. So then if you decide that you don't want to turn everything upside down, okay, and there's
No.
work to be done then to shift your perspective and like to discover what it's like to not be lonely in this state. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
the work just becomes different,
Yes.
but it's still the same work. That is to align with your highest self, your true self. That can look, I think there's limitless ways that can look as far as which lane you decide to go in, or explore. I don't like to make it sound like you're tucked into an immovable box or lane like that, but there's a lot of different versions of how we can show up in the world and still be our authentic true self and find joy and peace in that. But you have to be open to exploring it. You can't be stuck in that closed mindset of the pain. There has to be an exploration and a uncovering that is new and different. Otherwise, it's just more of the same bullshit.
It is. And a key word that you said is choose.
Yeah.
That's the word that stands out. To me, that's the distinction. Is choosing it it's the start of a new life.
I'm absolutely amazed at how complex our defensive systems are. Because something you said, Michelle, reminded me of a story that I heard. The gentleman was having a very, very hard time in his career and was deeply unhappy because of some things that were happening in the career. And in that moment, thought I needed to get a divorce because of how bad things got in his life. And like he didn't know it in the moment, right? Absolutely didn't know that's why he was wanting a divorce because of just how deeply unhappy he was. All he knew was that I need to freaking change something because I am miserable. And then it was only on reflection after he finally quit his job and moved that, oh, wow, that's where all that discomfort, that's where all that pain, that's where all that just lack of well-being was coming from, was the continuous betrayals that were happening in his job, and he was so deeply unsatisfied with it. And that pain then transmuted over to his marriage, and because he was in that spot of just being so deeply unhappy in his job, it showed up in his marriage. Then that caused the turmoil in the marriage. And as soon as he quit his job and then moved over and was showed up happier and showed up as a better person, his marriage got better. Like they're closer now than they've ever been, thanks to the learning that he had from that experience. But it's amazing how freaking blind we can be. I'm going to speak for myself in this one, how unbelievably blind I've been to what it is that I'm going through. And it takes some serious work to be able to uncover some of this stuff and the willingness to go into it and dive into it and allow whatever is to actually be. Because to let it be can sometimes be like a knife wound in the heart. And we fear so strongly that I'm not going to be able to see that. I'm not going to be able to be with that. So instead of going into it, we avoid it. And the only way out is through. There's no other way. We cannot avoid it because it will just sit there like the dust in those corners. We have to absolutely be willing to go in there and take a look at these turds. Oh, I remember for a while, I think it was you and I, Alina, we're talking about we had that box of shit. And, we can close that box of shit and stick it in the corner and do what we need to do. But still, that box of shit's there and it's wafting up and it's creating a smell in the environment.
I think we talked about turds in laundry was my dad's analogy. It's really it's so effective though. It was, yes, and I think we have talked about turd boxes of shit.
Yeah.
And we've talked about laundry with pieces of turd. So you can have all the soap and all the fragrance, but if there's a tiny little piece of turd in the washing machine with all that soap, it's all shit. Colors
Yep.
the whole thing. right? Stinks up the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you still have to deal with the turd that's in the laundry, fragrant detergent notwithstanding.
Yeah. We can only let that box sit in the corner for so long before the room is just full of the smell of shit.
Yeah.
But curious if y'all have 3 points y'all want to cover. Wrap this thing up.
I can.
Yeah.
I don't have them written down or anything, but they'll come.
Don't doubt that a bit.
Yeah. Ooh. I go first in our tradition.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go impromptu. The first is the willingness to look at it, which is incredibly uncomfortable. So the willingness to be with what you're going to see once you pause, stop, whether it is a drive on your own, sitting in a room by yourself, taking a walk by yourself, seeing and being by yourself with your loneliness. That is the first step. It is really important. While you're looking at it through the feelings of discomfort, fear, whatever comes up, having compassion for yourself and allowing yourself to be. And the third is remembering that you're not alone. Finding others to connect with in a community in whatever fashion, whatever your life accommodates, whether it is a group of friends, whether it is one compassionate, kind friend, whether it's a program that you join, whatever that is, to know that loneliness is the most common age-old phenomenon to experience. Yeah, those are the 1, 2, 3s.
The 1, 2, 3s of loneliness.
1, 2, 3s of loneliness. All right, I'm up. Consider the possibility that you can become your own best friend. Love the I in friend. And if you don't know what that looks like, just start considering the possibility that it is possible for you. Observe what brings you comfort. And that might be things that make you happy, things that make you giggle, but just start noticing times when you don't feel so heavy and alone. Because those are keys and clues to the way out. So that's 2. And then the third is know who your people are and lean into them. Yes, you have to go internal. Yes, you have to become your own best friend. Yes, you have to look at yourself. What if you can see yourself through the eyes of people you know and love and trust? Ask them what they love about you. Ask them what they find delightful about you. And hear them. Be willing to receive it. It might be hard. Some of us have a really hard time receiving other people telling us that they love us and how. But if you've never looked and you don't know how to find it for yourself, ask your people. One, it can just be one, but this is layered. There are layers to all the things I'm saying right now, right? Consider the possibility that you can become a friend. Start to look at and observe what might make you happy or bring you comfort. And if it's a coping mechanism that's unhealthy, notice that too. But then also, when you lean into people and ask them to give you love when you don't know how to give it to yourself, you're opening a door to learn how to receive. And when you can learn how to receive, that changes fucking everything, because it's a lonely world when you don't know how to receive. And so many of us don't. I don't know. That's it. That's what I got.
Michelle, you said something there that I wasn't going to talk about, but I feel like it's necessary now. That gummit, it came in and popped right back out.
I hate when that happens.
Damn it.
What did I say?
I don't know. I lost it because I was thinking about my other 3 points at the same time, too.
Maybe it'll come in. Start with your 3. Maybe you get 4.
There we go. My number one to loneliness is going to be, it's only always about us and not about others. The we have so many defense mechanisms built in that can cause us to be absolutely blind to what's coming in at us. And I just remember what it was. I'm gonna cover it on number two. Our defense mechanisms, our feelings of I have to prove, I have to please, that always gets in the way of creating deep, meaningful connections. It's for me, it was like I need to be impressive, and then people will love me. I will be accepted. That was the big thing. Like I want people to be to respect me, to be in awe of who I am. So I was trying to be impressive, and that sense of impressiveness was enough to build a wall of, whoa, this guy he's untouchable. So instead of being impressed and being interested in others, it kept a wall between me and others. Nobody gave a shit how good I was at guitar or running my business or how good I can sing or any of it. Right? Any of the proving that I would. Look how much I can lift off the ground. Nobody cares. So those walls just kept walls up between me and others. So it's only always about us and not others. Number two is slow down. Whenever I get stuck in go mode, it's coming from a sense of survival. And it's go, 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 do, 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 do. And in that sense of survival mode, my blinders are on. And I become completely blind to the signals of others in whatever that looks like. So these bids for attention, the bids for help, I couldn't even see them because I was in go mode, which causes me to, like, I realized whenever I was driving home the other night, I was up for 30 hours and I have the unbelievable ability to go into survival mode, which requires me to numb myself off from what I'm feeling. It's like whenever the tired sets in, wherever the pain sets in, whatever it is, I can turn it off. And that completely just eliminates my ability to sense what's in the space, to sense my own feelings because I've turned them off. So I just keep driving forward, keep driving forward, keep driving forward. And people try to help. This is what I was thinking about whenever you started speaking, Michelle. Whenever people try to help, if it's not coming in like I expect it should come in, I don't even see it. So even though people are reaching out, they have these bids for attention, they have these bids to be with me. I'm not accepting of it because I don't even see it. My blinders are on. I'm in go mode. Let's just do this fucking thing, and it turns off the access to anything that is outside of myself because I've put the fucking wall up. I've got the force field. Let's charge forward. Let's do this thing. Watch me go. Hold my beer. That's like my new thing that I keep saying. Like, hold my beer. Watch this. And that right there is just, it leaves no room for anything else. People can't access through the wall that way. So that's my number two is slow down, because only if we slow down do we have the free space to allow anybody in. And number three is stop comparing our internal to other people's externals. You see it so often in social media. The only things that people post is, look at me, how impressive with everything I've got going on. We don't allow people to see the darkness. We don't allow people to see the pain and the sadness, because if we were to do that, that would be vulnerable. That would leave our flank open, and then people come in and hurt us. Right? So there's that huge piece of, if we're comparing ourselves to others, we will always be lonely because we all will make us feel like we're not enough. We don't have the body, we don't have the cars or the money, and we're just not enough. So that nobody will love me because I don't have what these other people have. Something in me is missing. Social media has absolutely fed that machine, and but it's not at the core of what the problem is. Everybody wants to point all the fingers at social media, and that's not at the core of the problem. The core of the problem is we compare ourselves.
Comparison and expectations, two biggest killers of joy.
I just thought of one, or actually two other things that can get in the way. Taking things personally and trying to control others. Oh.
Good luck.
Good luck. Almost that. I think I might have just opened up a bigger box than what we can cover right now.
Controlling others is so much like, for me, it was a trauma response. It's the only way I felt safe is if I could control my external world.
Yeah. Ooh.
Fear, right? It all comes from fear.
You know what we just did? We just created a cliffhanger towards the next episode.
The next episode.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's a wrap. Let's stop this recording and save it for next time.
Dun, dun, dun. All right. Man, I love everybody.
Love you too.
Thank you for listening to That's a Great Point with Alina Doran, Michelle Albers, and Lee Smart. To find out more about how we can serve you, check out our links in the show description. Thanks for playing along.